Alright, welcome back to the Good Enough Homestead. Today I'm going to show Erin how to put on a new plug on a cord that the plug fell off of. So just be a little how-to, hopefully it'll help you out. The first thing, you need tools, obviously. So kind of wanted to show you what I use. There are a million different ways to do it, but this is the way I normally do it. First you need your cord. You need your replacement plug. I use a pair of linemans to make my cuts in the wire and also to remove the insulation on the outside, and then I use a pair of wire strippers for the smaller wires, and then you could use either of these or both of the types of screwdrivers. Some people will use just a utility knife to cut the insulation off. I've done that for years. I like the lineman a little bit better, a little bit easier to control, less of a likelihood to cut yourself with, so I'm not going to be using that today. So the first thing we need to do is remove this outer insulation layer to expose the wires within. This cord is just a 2-wire, so there's no ground. The plug that I have has a ground incorporated into it, but we don't need to use that, so we'll just not use this green screw, and we'll just use the brass and the silver colored one. No big deal there.
How do you know when to use a ground and when not to?
If you have a 3-wire cord, then you'll use a ground. You always want to use a ground if you have it available. That way if there's a power surge or something like that, you don't fry your equipment. So, the first thing, like I said, I use a pair of linemen. So we don't need a whole lot exposed. What I do is, you don't want to press in all the way because we don't want to cut in through the insulation on these little wires here. So you just depress a little bit. And you just kind of work it back and forth until you get through. Almost through there. Okay, and once you're through, just pull off the insulation. So once we have these exposed, I take my wire strippers, and this looks like it's probably 18 gauge wire, but you can see on this tool here it's got the numbers written on the sides. So what I normally do is just take a guess. Oh, that was good. So all this is doing is cutting through the insulation, but it's not cutting into the wire. This is a really thin wire. No wonder it broke. Okay, so we're exposed just enough insulation. I'm just kind of trying to twirl the wires here so they're not so splayed. So you bring your cord up through the bottom here, and then as we tighten these screws, which we'll do at the end, that cinches down so that you can't move it. So we want to just get it through there first. We'll deal with that part later. But now what we need to do is get our 2 wires into these little holes right here. And then as we tighten this down, it tightens down on the wire and makes our connection. So these are super thin wire filaments. So hopefully it'll cinch down okay. Once you get it in there,
Which one are you putting on which?
it doesn't matter.
You're just sticking it in the hole in there?
Sticking it in there and then tightening this down. Alright, so now that we've got our two connections made, these screws tightened down, just got to take the base of the plug, got to line up our holes. Alright, and then we just line up our plug body, screw it down. The screws have very big threads, so you really only have about a full turn. It's tight. And then this piece that we talked about earlier, push down on it. Both sides.
While you're doing that, Brad, that is obviously a crazy cord plug area. So if I was doing a normal cord, is there like that wire is just all going to be very similar? I'm just using different sizes of different wires. But will there be that part that you screw in at the end, or do I electrical tape it, or how does that work?
Which part do you mean?
So when I have the plug, oh, you've got the plug. Hold on, keep going. We can mute me.
What are you asking?
I'm asking if typically, if I was just reheading one with a normal plug, if there would be something here, or what I would be. What's the difference? Because obviously most plugs don't look like that. They look like this for your average layperson.
Yes. So she's asking, when you do a normal plug, you know, is it ever going to look like this? And the answer is no. If you're replacing a plug, it's not going to look like this. This is a molded plug, so this is all one piece, and it comes from the manufacturer that way. So you can see there's no breaks, there's no way to replace just this. So that's why they came up with this solution, where this part comes out. You put so any replacement plug is going to be kind of big and bulky like this. You see a lot of them that are bright yellow. Stuff like that. So you'll never get it to look like this. I'm sure there are ways. I think I've seen smaller ones that are kind of like this, where this pops out. This centerpiece. It's kind of the same idea. But yeah, it's never going to look this clean. It'll always look a little clunky. But hopefully you don't have to do this very often. So there, we've got our connection made. This is pretty tight. Maybe go down a little bit further, it looks like. Now when we plug this back in, we should be able to have our full cord back, and this is our computer, so we'll be able to get our computer back up and charged. So hopefully you guys learned something from that and enjoy that. And as always, if you have any questions, leave us a comment below, and we'll get back to you.